let me ask you this. Were you surprised that the Bills fired McDermott?
I guess modestly so. I mean, they've had a similar track record to the Ravens. They've had a quarterback for the same amount of time in the 2018 draft who hasn't taken to the Super Bowl yet. So I guess I was a little surprised by the Harbaugh firing too.
Yeah. Do you have any interest in McDermott?
No.
Oh, I wasn't ready for that. I wasn't ready for that quick answer, but okay.
I don't either.
I don't either. I just like if they said he was their guy, I'm not going to go, oh, this is a terrible signing, but it's not. It just doesn't do anything for me.
Yeah, I mean, it's just none.
Is he joining Al Qaeda right now? What's going on? Remember his stories? Hey, you don't want to quit like that. Oof.
Oh yeah.
Go over
well, that with his firing, does that become the most attractive job? Or are the Ravens still number one?
I think the Ravens are still number one, but it is close, and that is one of the questions: is do the individual candidates hold up the process because they want to interview with both teams? And I think it ends up being kind of a prisoner's dilemma problem. You end up with Robert Saleh going to
Tennessee,
taking a lesser job probably because he's not sure that he's going to get one of the top two.
Right.
But if you don't, you run that risk. So,
yeah, you have something written down, which is. I always say this, the concern of when your coach leaves. It's never about a coach leaving, getting fired, getting picked up by another team. What does he take from your team to go with him? Now, from a coaching standpoint, I guess it doesn't matter with a new coach coming in. But from a player standpoint, that could be something significant.
Right. I think it matters from who the Ravens lose out of the organization because there's going to be a lot of people you don't really know. There may be football strategy guys that go. George Warhop is apparently interviewing for the job, and I think the Ravens needed to make a change there anyway. But Daniel Stern is the head of their sort of their football strategy.
The guy from Home Alone. He was part of the Wet Bandits and the Sticky Bandits. Sorry, go ahead.
But there were all a bunch of assistant coaches. There's Matt Robinson, the outside linebackers coach. There's Dennis Johnson, the defensive line coach. Don DeLessio, Willie Taggart. These may seem like small ones. I think what a big one is Randy Brown. They don't want to lose him. So hopefully he doesn't end up going. But the Giants play in New Jersey, and Randy Brown used to live in New Jersey and was a mayor of a New Jersey town, so he's probably gone. And then of course Todd Monken.
You mentioned Robert Saleh going to the Tennessee Titans. He was I wanted him. What did you think of him?
Yeah, good possibility to be a CEO, head coach, and this is the most unpopular thing to say on Twitter right now is that you want a CEO, head coach, but it allows you to not get rid of your head coach if you don't like his side of the ball. The other side of it is you keep your guy longer. Potentially, if you have the offensive coordinator you want, you're not beholden to the rest of the league not hiring him away.
I don't know why people oppose that so much, because I mean it's. You hire good people, but you run the whole organization. You have to run all, offense, defense, special teams, manage the clock. You have to do all the other things. It's nice not to have to worry with X's and O's.
Yeah.
I don't know why people don't. I guess because they haven't run anything. If you have, you'd understand it.
You want to delegate as soon as you have all that authority. So it in the case of the Ravens in particular, they have a lot of great DNA habits, and I think Weaver actually would be a pretty good hire for this team. I know he's comes out of the Harbaugh tree and whatnot, but he knows what the Ravens have done in terms of information flows, practice habits, weight training, all the things that he saw Harbaugh build that were good. And think of this as like compared to the Greg Roman era and moving on from that. Didn't want to throw out the baby with the bathwater. There's a whole bunch of good things that Greg Roman built about the run game in Baltimore that they wanted to keep, and they were good about maintaining that because the elements of DNA ran through Harbaugh and ran through others who said, we got to keep doing this part of it. But I'm really afraid if they completely clean out the coaching tree that you'll lose a lot of those good DNA elements that the Ravens have, all the good stuff that Harbaugh brought in.
Yeah, I want to get your thoughts because on some of the players that could leave in a bit, but I also want to piggyback off of what you were just saying with, bringing in a new coach. Does philosophy totally change? Or, when you look at what you've done and everything, I'm sure everything's still going to be predicated on the run game, but is it going to be that same kind of run game? Because again, what you said about Greg Roman, and I heard another player say it, said, look, that guy's a running game coordinator. He fixes your running game. Other than that, it's very, and I know people call it his offense elementary, but does that concern you at all? Of like is there someone that you think is better to fit what they're going to do? Is it an offensive guy to go with Lamar? Is it a defensive guy to change things up? Or
I think the changes at the top kind of have to happen organically because your head coach has to be given the authority over his silo to hire his people. So hopefully that they get on the same page with whoever they're going to hire, and they know what his whole team is, his top three anyway, including him, that they're buying into. They still are in a position where they could demand something like Greg Roman being brought back as the run game coordinator. You could actually do that specific thing. I know people aren't crazy about that name, and they didn't like it, but he
knows what he's doing
with
there.
A lot less power. That's probably a good thing.
Well, something I'm not crazy about. Why are so many people enamored with Brian Flores? Can you explain this to me, please?
He has a good defensive track record. He improved the Vikings, improved the Dolphins. So from that perspective, I can kind of understand it. From the perspective of, communication styles and how to run an organization, whether you think he could really build a tree and build a really good coaching, operation around him, coaching pyramid, I don't trust him at all for that. I mean, this is something they've spoke out so high about him. Yeah.
I don't get it. And we get and people call in now saying, well, Ed hates Brian Flores. I don't hate him. I just don't understand what the hell is so attractive about him, because you have players don't like him. Two of the more level-headed players, in my opinion, Ryan Fitzpatrick and Van Noy, both spoke badly about it. Nah, not him. He's got a pending lawsuit against the league. He crapped on his former owner. Why would you want to touch this guy? Right. But yet we get calls every day. I don't, for the life of me, I do not understand it. But
yeah, there's a lot of them out there that you start to look at and you wonder who makes the most sense. But I still look at, Jesse Minter was the guy that I had circled, and I still, even looking at the names, and I saw some of the ones we have highlighted here, like Kubiak is another guy that's interesting. The Anthony Weaver stuff, and until Saleh signed last night, I think there's some young coaches to give an opportunity to, but even then, we've seen it. Mike McDaniel interests me. But I didn't like what I saw in Miami at all. Was it just because of the culture? Is he just like Cliff Kingsbury, where he wants to be buddy-buddy with the players? I don't know, but what do you think of Minter? Would Minter be a guy that you think would be a good fit here?
Yeah, I think he's one of the stronger candidates, and he's definitely in my top 5. I think they'll bring him in for an interview. Not 100% sure of that. But he could bring in a McDaniel to work for him, and then you'd have, I think that'd be a very powerful.
That's what I'm hoping for. Yeah.
And the only other guy, I like Weaver. I mean, he's a guy who's a CEO, potential head coach, and he's the first guy they brought back. I thought it was interesting that Bisciotti kind of singled him out in the press conference by saying, I hope he can cut through the things that he knows to say, and I'm paraphrasing, of course, the performance that he's going to be able to put on an interview because he knows the Ravens' way. But he is a guy who's coached in this, within this room, and he'd bring back a lot of the DNA elements.
I mean, he's got tie-ins to Mike McDaniel too. I don't know the camaraderie there if you'd want to go work for a guy that worked for you or how that works, but there's a lot of things that have to be decided. All right, we've got another segment of this. We got to talk about the Ravens kind of season and where maybe some of these players will go. We'll get more into some of the free agency and all that. We'll talk more with Ken McKusick here on the Big Bad Morning Show on 105.7 The Fan.
The Big Bad. Do you have any fear that the Ravens seem to be doing more than their due diligence? They're going through a dozen or more candidates, bringing people back for second interviews. The Titans hired a guy like that as soon as you could talk to him. Are you worried at all that guys are going to do what Saleh may have done? Take a lesser job, thinking you may not get. The Ravens and Bills now are the two most desirable, I'm assuming. Thinking you're not going to get that. So then you all of a sudden now, somebody you may want may take another job with a lesser team. Does this worry you at all?
Yeah, always a risk. I think that just having the Bills in the thing probably set the Ravens back a little bit in terms of people wanting both jobs, and that may have actually been an advantage for some of the lesser teams in creating this, what I referred to earlier, the prisoner's dilemma situation where they're taking a lesser job rather than waiting on a good one.
Well, I want to go to some of the player personnel here because one of the guys has been talked about a lot, whether or not it's you're watching his podcast or listening to his bad takes. I think he came out the other day and said he wants to take dance lessons, which fans are like, can you just shut up? But Marlon Humphrey, where do you see him having a role in this team? Is it something where you think he moves on? Does he switch positions?
So, yeah, the Marlon Humphrey, there's a $7.3 million savings for the Ravens if they cut him. And that's the only question the Ravens have to answer. He has a $26 million cap hit or thereabouts, but $7.3 million is the amount they can save if they cut him. So their decision has to be, can we get another person for that price? I think if the question was just, he's only coming back to play outside corner, which is what the only position to cornerback that's really available other than slot snaps in dime, then I think the answer might be no, that they wouldn't want him. But I think that this is the opportunity where you move him to safety. Finished dead last in coverage grade among 76 corners via PFF. That's terrible. But it's an injury-plagued year, and a year ago he was AP1, in 24. So there is that question. I think what I see in terms of portable skills there, he reads the quarterback very well. He comes off man to make interceptions meaning on somebody else's assignment, not playing off the guy at the line of scrimmage. I think he still will be a physical tackler, although his missed tackle rate was kind of high this year. But I like what he can do and how he could jump in to cover the slot if you blitz with Hamilton. So I really like him on the back end. I think that might be a good career change at this exact moment now. And apparently, he talked about DaCosta giving him a percentage chance that he'd be back, and he liked his chances, he said, from that. Way to improve your chances, be versatile.
Yeah, absolutely. Big stuff. Yeah. Be that utility guy. One of my favorite players has come on to me is Nate Wiggins. Probably the fastest guy in the defense, I'm assuming.
Oh, yeah.
How do you like him? I thought he played well because he was on pretty much everybody's number one that I saw. That's who they use. Nobody can outrun them.
The Ravens have not been a team that traveled really ever, not before for a long time. And Wiggins is the first guy who did it some this year in the second half. It definitely hurt his statistics personally a little bit. But he had, 74.4 passer rating against. His yards per target dropped off from 7.0 to 6.6. So I think he played very well, reduced his penalties this last year. Yeah, he's the one guy I love sitting on the X receiver there and going back. By the way, just as an aside last time, you said the national championship game, with how wide those hashes were, the X receiver on the left side, who's the guy they were throwing to on the interception that lost the football game, was the only player on the left half of the field entirely. The entire left half of the field. Just watch it from the end zone. There's the only
I got to look at it again now.
He's the only player. And I'm like, I always talk about the space budget for an X receiver. That's the picture I need to keep, the still picture or that play.
So much room to work with.
Yeah.
Depending on what the play call is. But, talking about the secondary, because bringing up Humphrey and some of the other guys, but the Awuzie and Tampa, and there's a lot of interesting pieces here. Do you expect a lot of those guys to be back? And again, I think some of this is probably going to depend on how quickly they can get a Lamar extension done to allow you to keep some guys. But your thoughts on the secondary?
Yeah, so in terms of the cornerback group, it's a very old group for starters, and it was made old by the fact that Longerbeam and Kone both got hurt in their first year, and they don't know what they have. So they probably are going to have to draft another cornerback this year, and they still kind of need a guy like Awuzie to come back or find another one. Awuzie, of course, was a huge find because they just paid the vet minimum for him, and Tennessee had to pay the rest of his salary of about $8 million, as I understand it. So, he's worth more than that. He's going to get more than that somewhere in the open market. I don't think the Ravens are going to be able to compete for his services, but we'll see. And I don't think he's a one-year deal guy anymore either. I think he's a guy who gets a 3-year, $28 million deal or something.
What are we going to do with our Darius Washington now?
Love to keep him if we could.
Me too.
I mean, you're first of all, the Ravens, since they play 4 safeties on a lot of plays, when they go to the dime, they have a safety or a slot corner that they want to put in, and that could be Ardarius, and then they have Hamilton at the dime spot, and then 2 on the back end. If you need 4 safeties like that, then you really need 5 on game day in order to make sure that you're not forced into playing otherwise when somebody goes down, and defensive backs go down a lot, so it's a reasonable thing.
Now, one other thing to get back to, and I don't know how much you guys, I missed you last week, and I'm trying to remember the dates of when everything came down. Was there any interest in kicking the tires on Mike Tomlin for you, or is that something, because you'd have to trade for him, which I know other teams have done it, but I don't even think that's something I'd be interested in.
Is that true? They have to trade for him? I mean, he walked away from his job. I didn't know what the
But they still retain his rights. It was the weirdest thing.
Like fire him.
If he lets them fire him, then he keeps all his money. But essentially, he's just walking away.
So he's going to go to TV for a year, and then he'll be back. In all likelihood. So yeah, I don't think I don't think he impacts his coaching search for the Ravens.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was with it too. But again, you need the first domino to drop for the Ravens to figure out how everything else is going to fall into place, and then Then all of a sudden, then it's Lamar's the next one, and then looking at your draft and free agency.
Well, that's why I brought that question up to Ken earlier about time, because the longer you wait, it's not just the head coach. Then all the guys who don't get head coaching jobs, who are good assistants, like McDaniel or Saleh, if he didn't go with the Titans. I mean, these guys who do a great job on one side of the ball, they're gone too, because then people building their coaching staff. So I'm kind of worried about the delay here. And frankly, nobody out there's got to have that guy.
Yeah,
I just don't see that guy out there right now. Who do you like out of this crew? We talked about it as we opened the segment last segment. I mean, is it Minter, is it Weaver?
Yeah.
Is it
so Weaver? I'm happy he's in the final five. I think he brings some value to the table, but I don't have to have him. I take Clint Kubiak, Jesse Minter would be a good one. Chris Shula I would take if they want to really go, and then get an OC underneath him. Maybe it would be McDaniel under Shula. I would be okay with that. That fifth one to decide on is kind of difficult at this time. I'm not sure I have one prepared with Saleh out. He would have been my fifth. Probably Mike McDaniel would be number five.
Really?
Again. I prefer him as the offensive coordinator, but at this point, the choices were already getting a little bit slimmer.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting when Bisciotti kind of alluded to the fact, it's like, don't be surprised if you see somebody that has a losing record. And we were all going, oh, they're hiring Stefanski. Mm-hmm. That's what's happening right now, right? Is he setting us up for that? And then Mike McDaniel became available, and it's like, well, wait a minute, maybe it's that guy too.
Or Saleh. They're all losing records. That's why they're on the market.
Yeah.
It's like,
and I think, and it all matters where you go your first time. Like how many times have we been talking about like Sam Darnold? If he hadn't gone to the Jets, what would he look like?
Yeah.
And the Jets. I didn't mean to bring them up. But
I know my chicken.
They killed Carl.
The Jets killed Carl. And the Knicks a little.
But no, like looking at the guys that are available.
That's a Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Yeah. So it's it's talking about TV shows, it takes you back. But no, like looking at all the candidates out there, this is a weird time in Ravens history because I've been doing radio for 26 years. I've only talked about a head coaching search once here.
Yeah.
That was for Billick, so and I don't even remember talking about that because when I came in, he was, that was the year I started radio. So I don't know. It's an interesting offseason actually for both teams we have in this town, but even more so for the Ravens because many people thought that this team should be in the Super Bowl. But real quick, before we let you run, Ken, tell everybody about the website and where they can find you.
All right. FilmStudyBaltimore.com is the website. I'm at FilmStudyRavens on Twitter. And let me remember what I have for you this week. We got a podcast coming out this week on the future of Marlon Humphrey that goes into a lot of detail about what are the possibilities, what the Ravens could ask him to do or do in terms of a positional shift.
Good stuff as always. Ken McKusick, FilmStudyBaltimore.com. Appreciate you. When we come back, we'll talk more about the divisional round recap. We got to get into the AFC. We focused a lot on the NFC earlier. We'll talk about the matchups that we have. Denver and New England. Denver with a backup quarterback in Jarrett Stidham. We discuss that next here on The Fan.